The world this week is digesting the outcome of Germany's election last Sunday. The most dramatic news, of course, was not the re-election of Angela Merkel, but the impressive showing of the Alternative for Deutschland, a far-right nationalist party. The AfD was the third most popular party in Germany. It won around 90 seats in Germany's parliament. Meanwhile, Germany's mainstream parties, the CDU, the CSU, the Social Democrats, all lost support. There's a lot to this story. There's a lot of different angles that we need to continue to watch. But here are three specific trends to watch in the weeks and months ahead. First, watch the evolution of the Christian Social Union. The CSU is the sister party to the CDU. It's based in Bavaria, and it tends to be more conservative than Angela Merkel's CDU. Sunday's election was a wake-up call for the CSU. The CSU won just under 39% of the vote in Bavaria, and while this sounds like a good showing, it actually marked a 10% drop from the 2013 federal election result. CSU leaders this week are doing a lot of soul-searching. According to Edmund Stoiber, a former CSU leader, the CSU made the mistake of aligning too closely with Angela Merkel. Others have said that the CSU was outflanked on the right by the AfD. But despite its poor showing, Sunday's result was not fatal in the long term for the CSU. In fact, it was probably just the jolt that this party needs. The AfD isn't a huge threat politically in the long term. While it was democratically elected and it did seduce a number of CSU supporters, the AfD doesn't have a strong base. A lot of its supporters aren't exactly staunch supporters. And I think given a more appealing option, a lot of AfD voters would switch allegiance in a heartbeat. So the CSU's path forward is fairly obvious. It must become the option to the AfD. This means we can expect the CSU to move further to the right. We can expect the CSU to be more hardline in its relationship with Angela Merkel. We can expect the CSU to talk more firmly about immigration. We can expect an even more nationalist tone from the CSU. We can expect the CSU to become a milder version of the AfD. And if the CSU can do this, it will not only regain lost voters, it'll probably poach voters from the AfD and even other mainstream parties. So the reality is that the CSU has been presented with a huge opportunity. The second thing to watch is watch the internal politics of the Christian Social Union. The CSU has a party election next year in the fall, and it clearly needs to figure itself out before then. Some CSU members this week have begun demanding the resignation of Horst Seehofer, the current party leader. One or two candidates appear to be positioning themselves to replace Seehofer if the opportunity arises. But as I just noticed, the CSU has a terrific opportunity in the upcoming weeks and months. But whether or not it capitalizes on this opportunity will depend on its leadership. The CSU needs a leader who can get voters excited, a leader who can convince supporters that the party understands their concerns and is ready to address those concerns. As I explained last week, the trumpet believes the CSU might need someone like Karl Theodor zu Guttenberg. Third, watch Angela Merkel as she negotiates a new coalition government for Germany. Merkel now has to form what they call a Jamaica coalition. This is a coalition between the CDU, the Free Democrats, and the Greens. But Merkel also has to negotiate with a fourth party, and that's the CSU. The CDU can no longer take the CSU's support for granted. Merkel can no longer just expect the CSU to support her positions and views and opinions. Angela Merkel now has to bring all four parties together and form a government. And this is not going to be easy. Personally, I wouldn't be surprised if it actually turned out to be impossible. There are two or three issues on which the Free Democrats and the CSU, for example, have virtually opposite views. How's Merkel going to satisfy the CSU and the Free Democrats on the issue of immigration caps, for example? That's going to be very, very difficult. So forming a coalition is going to take weeks and months. This means Germany's government is going to be inward, it's going to be distracted. It's unlikely that we're going to see Germany acting with confidence on the world stage over the next few weeks and months. Then, if and when Germany does form a government, it's going to be fragile and sluggish. Merkel won't be able to lead with freedom and confidence. The decision-making, the policy-making process will be slow and cumbersome and filled with tension and disagreement. It really doesn't take a lot of imagination to see Merkel's new coalition administration becoming a lame duck government. So Germany in the coming weeks and months is going to turn inward. Its politics are going to become more intense. The tone will become more nationalist. All this is going to impact Germany's behavior and leadership in the EU, in international affairs, in the Brexit negotiations, and the list goes on and on. We'll have to wait and see, but it's hard to see this ending well for Merkel or for Germany. And I think that it's highly likely that Germany in the coming weeks and months will move toward a much larger and a much more significant political crisis.